All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Sunday Main Slate Show. This week, week 2 in NFL DFS, going to be breaking all things down. We'll get it all up and more. Do us a favor on the way in, smash the like, subscribe to the channel. We always say it, but the more we grow, the more we show. We keep all these shows free. We put them out for you every week, around the clock. Same crew you know and expect. Got Hoopster Title here with me. And Hoop, going to bring you in first. We are still in the month of September. Some say Sunday fun day. We say Sunday win day. Let's get it done, my friend. Week 2, and you're making some business decisions over there. Even had me change up the thumbnail on this thing to get Dak on the cover. What's going on, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. A lot of, the Dak bit became a pretty big piece of what we did last season. Again, a lot of people made a ton of money, kind of following the lead with the Dak situation. And I guess a lot of people just assumed I was going to him every week. I said, last week, no, thank you, hard pass. But week 2, I think it's a good spot for Dak. We'll talk about it when we get to that game, like more in depth. I have some reasons behind it. It's not just to play him because I played him last season. I think it's a very solid spot for him. But we do have a very big slate. More games, no teams really on bye, and a lot of interesting games to target. We have some injury situations where there's some standout value plays. Ownership kind of getting consolidated in certain spots, I'd say at the running back and wide receiver position. Say the same thing every week, and this week's going to be true. No matter who you think's going to be popular at quarterback, they're not going to be popular enough to where you need to avoid them. It's going to get spread out, and it's a situation that I've been taking advantage of for years because a lot of people say, "Oh, this guy's going to be too popular at quarterback. I have to fade." Like it's just, to me, it's never should be the case. So we'll talk through the slate. A lot of good games, like I said, a lot of solid DFS plays, and looking forward to this one for sure.
Yeah, lots of good people here in the chat. Going to just say what's up to a couple. Sean Sullivan, first in today. Shout out to Nate. Shout out to Casey. Wins a lot. Our guy Kenny said right off the top, the cover, he saw it. Hoop making those business decisions. Our guy Jordan helping out with Shiptimizer in the chat for you guys. Brought him on the team this week, so I appreciate that. We are going to do an annual football giveaway if we get to 600 likes. So you're going to want to start hitting that button now. Shout out to Stephanie. Shout out to Nick. We got a bunch of good people in here and more. And Title, Hoop was talking about these quarterbacks. We got Jared Goff. We got Matthew Stafford. We got all kinds of different options. Danny Dime, because he's down to just 1K Adams, still got dimes in his pockets. We got all kinds of quarterbacks that we're going to talk about. But what's going on, Title? Free Money Sunday. We're back, baby.
Oh, we're back, baby. 13 games these first couple weeks without the bye weeks. You always get the bigger slates. Definitely a lot of concentrated chalk, just like last week. Usually get that in the first 2 weeks. The saying last week was you can fade the chalk because, hey, who knows about week 1, what coaches are going to do. Week 2, people overcompensate. What happened week 1 is always going to happen week 2. However, a lot of the chalk this week, like the Rams stuff, there's no Puka. So some injuries do dictate ownership this week. But, man, nothing better than waking up Sunday morning, bright and early, ready to watch football for the rest of the day.
And we got to start this off on a good note. Jake, I've been looking for you. I've been waiting for you, man. You're back. Hit me up, info@shipitnation.com. I don't know if you're in there lurking already, but if you're not a member, we said we got to get Jake the Take Swales into the Discord. So hit me up, info@shipitnation.com. First little giveaway of the day, my friend. Appreciate you being here. As always, Hoop, Title just talked about a little. Let's start there before we get to bringing up the stone and going through some of the games this week. There's 13 games, not many in the afternoon. We'll bring up some of the late swap strategy maybe, but just in general, the week 2 thought process. You and I hit up the first look this week, and we talked a lot about it. Week 1, everyone just plays the chalk. We've had pricing forever. Week 2, everyone just assumes the exact same thing as week 1 is going to happen. So this week becomes, pretty popular. Go ahead.
The one thing for me is definitely the running back and wide receiver position, because I think we're going to see some very popular plays at that position, and there's some really good plays on the slate outside of the popular plays. Like Jordan Mason is going to be very popular. Yes, his price it's bad, and it was out there before the Christian McCaffrey news, so there's no way the sites would have been able to get Jordan Mason's price up. He's appears to be a free square. Then you get Kenneth Walker ruled out. Zach Charbonnet is a guy that people are definitely going to want to play. The wide receiver position, everyone saw what Cooper Kupp did last week against the Lions. 21 targets, 14 receptions, going to be very popular at the wide receiver position. But this is a full slate. It's not like buys have started or anything. We have, I don't even know what's the number of games, 12, 13 on the 13. Main slate, maybe. Yeah, 13 on the main slate. There's some really, really good plays that I think come in much lower owned than they should. And we'll address them as we go on through the show. So for me, the story of this week is those running back and wide receiver plays that might get squeezed a little bit because of how we have these standout obvious plays at those positions.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of that too, the good chalk versus bad chalk. I know a lot of people question that, wondering how to handle it, what it is, all of those factors and title. That's what it's going to be. There is certainly some plays this week that you look at them and you just know, okay, I can still put them in, but there's plenty of ways I can get different within my stacks, within some of my secondary stacks, other lineup builds that I can do. And then there's also sort of certain leverage points you can just go to where if Breece Hall, for example, when we get to that game, is going to be super popular, maybe I can move to wide receiver and play Garrett Wilson at a similar price point, but different position, which also flips the build. So we're going to talk a lot of process and stuff as we break it down. Jake, man, he's in. He says he's on your money side. He's on the money team with Hoop. He's not on the home team, but he said Cowboys embarrass the Saints, but give me the Bucs with them points to take the line.
He goes with me on the Cowboys side, but then takes a quick shot at the Lions. I don't know how I feel about that. I will say though, I do kind of agree with him. I think that number's a little bit too big. 7.5 for the Lions. Like I think they get the job done today, but 7.5 does seem like a little bit too much. So maybe I do agree with him after taking a shot back at him.
Yeah, let's get right into this, man. Let's go to these games. And I did what we always call the dry run. We do this on the showdown shows. I thought I would do it for a main slate, but just went to ShipItNation.com. I ran Shiptimizer on NFL with the basic settings to see what it was giving us. And we're getting a hashtag Never Mahomes. Did some real deep dives on that yesterday too, by the way, but we'll go into it. We're getting 22% Mahomes, 15% Purdy, 15% Daniels, 8% Darnold, and then it's splitting out from there. Mason, no surprise, getting almost 70%. This is with no cap. And no cap on this. I'm giving you the goods. Breece Hall, 53%. Gibbs, 23%. Kieran Williams, a lot of what Hoop talked about already. Some of these guys. Debo, Cooper Kupp, Rice. This is where it's clear the chalk is. And I know title when we get there. Cash game stuff, all of that. I mean, this is just what makes sense. These guys are getting targets. They're in good spots. All of these things. Parkinson, surprisingly, just a little under these others, but we know what it's going to be, and his ownership's going to be there. So it's just the way it shook out in some of these builds. And then Cardinals going against the Rams. A lot of people talking about you could play them versus Kupp, all these things. So title, just first thoughts on this dry run, anything you don't agree with or anything that you didn't expect to see?
No, it definitely, like you said, those top four guys definitely going to be pretty high owned. And we talked about there's going to be clear chalk. We know where that chalk's going to be. That doesn't mean you need to fade it. We talk about building a portfolio. I recommend if you just say $50 is your bankroll, instead of doing one $50 single entry, you can find do 4 $3 maxes, a couple $5 single entries. You can build multiple teams that way where you eat chalk in some spots, but your lineup tells a story. Then you fade a Breece chalk in another spot and you go Garrett Wilson, but it's not, you have one team. Well, you're 100% on all your guys. You're overweight. You're fading everyone else. I like the idea of building more teams. Doesn't mean you need to play more money. Plenty of variations as far as dollar amounts out there. That's how you make sure your lineup tells a story. You can play chalk in some, you fade it in the other. It's more of a portfolio like we talked about last week. So ready to talk some football.
Yeah, I'm going to get into the Raiders, Ravens. Before I do, though, quick. So almost 170 likes. We do appreciate everyone on the way in. Smash it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're pushing 8,000 now. We're at 7,810 or so. Once we get to 8,000, another giveaway. And then also just to note, we said last week, we're obviously too nice on these giveaways and breaking stuff down, but we brought the stone back up. But the way it's going to work is quite simple. 750 likes brings it back next week. Otherwise, next week, I'll put it on my screen in front of me. We'll just run the three of us. You'll get to see our faces much bigger. But this shows the target games, the sneaky games. We'll run it one more time for you guys. I love having this up. It makes it easier to see it all in one place. It is the best tool in NFL and just DFS in general because we have it for all the sports. We have it for PGA and Showdown. We have it for NFL and Showdown. So we'll get through it and go to it. But Hoop, I'm going to start with you. And I originally didn't love this game as much because of the spread and just how the slate breaks down. And obviously everybody knows I'm a Ravens homer, but thought about it a little bit more. Building some lineups this morning, adding a few extras in. I got a couple guys I like here, and you kind of liked one of them, I think, on the First Look show. So give me your thoughts here on Raiders-Ravens.
Yeah, so looking at the Ravens, obviously projected to score, what do we got, right around 26 actual points. That is, welcome back, Mike B. Yeah, love that. Glad you're here. Lamar Jackson at, what are we showing, 6%? Like, in 150, I want some for sure. Like, he can nuke a slate. People look at it, they're favored by 9.5. It can't be Lamar Jackson because they're favored by 9.5. You know, that's the talking point. Like, I'll take Lamar Jackson in this spot at low ownership, and all his pieces that you would potentially pair him with are coming in low ownership. I mean, you'd assume after Isaiah Likely's game, like, he gets ownership, and it's just simply not the case. And he looked legit, not just like tight end legit, like wide receiver, like pass catcher legit. 1%, like, I got to take a chance there for sure in my 150. A little bit of Zay Flowers, 3%. Like, you're getting a team projected to score a lot of points today at just very, very low ownership. So I'm in on some of this Raven stuff. And then the plays at running back, ownership's very consolidated. Jordan Mason, Charbonnet, Breece Hall. Like, those three are going to get a massive chunk of ownership. Could it be a 3-touchdown Derrick Henry game? Absolutely. And we're showing like 8%. So it's one of those situations where a team's projected to score a lot of points. There's no ownership at all. Like, with the offense, they probably do score into the 20s, mid-20s, maybe hit 30. So I'm in on this offense because I don't need to allocate a lot of resources to get over the field on it, and sign me up.
Yeah, back in the day playing the video games title, I'm not sure if this is too past your time, but when you're playing Super Mario, you get the flower power. You can go with the Flowers Bowers up in this one. You want to run that secondary stack, but I think our guy Nades had the take I was thinking of. Like, realistically, I know John Harbaugh's talked about it. We didn't bring him in to run him 30 times, all this stuff. This just might be a natural thing today. Like, he might just be able to jam 2 in, maybe even, like, who knows how often they get there, but huge favorites, big point total, always better at home, always beat up on some of these teams. And you can run Henry Bowers, who's kind of squeezed between all the chalk on the slate. Like, people are either going down to like a Parkinson or the cheap guys around him, or they're going up to a Kelsey, McBride, Kittle, something like that. I think Bowers is in a really good spot on the field a ton last week. We've got him here high upside. And then if you want to do some of the stacking stuff, it's interesting on FanDuel, Lamar is 8,800 and like Jaden Daniels is 8K or something over there versus on DraftKings, quite the delta between the two of them. So maybe you can do a little bit more there, but if they're putting up the points at home, they can do it. You can build an onslaught. You can play some Henry, Ravens D. You can go back to the well on Mark Andrews if you think it's possible. Like Hoop said, you can go to Likely. There is Ravens that you can use, and I think Bauer's somewhat interesting on the other side. Devontae Adams maybe, but Title, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, definitely not a game I love much. I mean, the Raiders are just not good. Tough spot on the road. I don't like really anybody, so I'm just going to say full X Raiders. Ravens side is interesting because you can go the Derrick Henry route, one of the most likely to score a touchdown on the slate, minus 185. Last game against the Chiefs, it wasn't the best game script. Justice Hill rotated in a lot. Ravens get up 10, 14, or they covered this game at 9.5. You have to think Henry, they work him hard. And a new addition that didn't play too much week 1, this feels like a spot Harbaugh wants to get Henry the ball as much as he can. You can see 100-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. I like him at a very concentrated running back pool. And then if you don't go Henry, I do think Lamar, and then you pick one of Andrews, Likely, Flowers. I prefer Andrews or Likely because of that. You have to play one tight end on this slate. A lot of people are punting the position, the Parkinsons of the world, Schoonmakers. So you overspend a little bit, but they ran so many 2 tight end sets last week with Andrews and Likely. So even though the box score was awful for Andrews, it was great for Likely. I think that regresses to the median a little bit We have a little better touchdown prop. It's almost the same for Andrews and Likely. Pretty much the same receiving prop too, 39.5 yards Andrews, 37.5 for Likely. So I don't want to play both, but you can just play Lamar with one of them because Lamar has the rushing upside there. Andrews or Likely falls in the box. Tight end's not great this week. That's how I'd approach it. Don't want any run backs, either Henry by itself, and you can go Ravens D. They're expensive. Talk about flipping build. I think most want to get out cheap this week. We saw it like Bears defense break the slate last week. Defense puts up 20. You do need them. So, yeah, some of the Ravens side, Henry, Ravens, or Lamar with one of Andrews, Likely, Flowers. Not my favorite on this 13-game slate, though. I don't like it.
We'll talk about 2 tight end this week because I think you can play it, especially in higher dollar, smaller field, but it would not be with both of the Ravens tight ends for me. I can certainly tell you that. So I would stay away from that one. Title, I'm going to actually stay with you on this one just because I don't think it's going to be a crazy game either, but I think, people are talking about Chargers. They're definitely talking about J.K. Dobbins after last week. The Panthers got worked last week, now at home. Just take us through this one here. Chargers, Panthers, next game up.
Panthers are so freaking awful. Like, watching that game was one of the worst things I've had to see. As you see, all those guys, GPP options, they all are in play if you want to burn your money. I'm not playing any of those clowns. Chargers side, J.K. Dobbins. Like, there was J.K. Dobbins, Vidal, Edwards. The backfield was absolutely loaded preseason for the Chargers. Harbaugh came in, so they just knew they wanted to run the football, play action after that. Dobbins as a 6-point favorite. He outsnapped Gus Edwards. He looked way better. That 5,400 price tag definitely stands out. He's not going to be low owned by any means, as we see 10%, but there's so many good running back plays. It's not like his ownership can be 30%. So I'm in on JK for a very cheap price tag. You can play him and Mason together, spend up at other spots. Plenty of ways to go there. And my second favorite spot, Chargers defense. I don't want to play any defense against Bryce Young and the Panthers. So Dobbins, Chargers, little mini there. After that, if you want to go McConkey, Palmer, take a shot there, but mainly just Dobbins, Chargers.
Yeah, Hoop, I'll come to you in a second. Before I do, just last game, people brought it up. FanDuel, Pacheco was like right there in that price range. And, again, I get when people aren't on the passing attack over there as much as, let's say, on DraftKings, they're just going to plug in Pacheco. It's just another spot. Again, if you can get to Derrick Henry, could be a good little pivot. Even on DraftKings, he's right there in between a lot of these guys as well in that price range. Pacheco, 6,900. Some of the other guys that we'll talk about later with Connor, Williams, all those guys too. But Hoop, I'm with Title. I like the Chargers D. I do have, I think, a little bit of, these disgusting stacks with like Herbert, Ladd, and Hayden Hurst. Those aren't good though. So I'm just going to flip it to you, but I just don't love chasing Dobbins as much. He's in there though, but it was pretty good week for him last week for week 1.
Hoop, you hear that? He's got some stacks, but he knows they're not good.
Yeah, I mean, usually Tambo hits you with like a sly little like one-liner. When he hits you with the direct, I have it, but it's not good. You should be paying attention. I do like that. Definitely like that statement.
Maybe honesty.
I love it. I love the statement, and I guess I'm in lockstep with Title here. It's Dobbins, Chargers defense. Thing about the Chargers, they want to, with Harbaugh in there, they want to win ugly football games. We saw it last week. They're going to be fine winning this game, like, I don't know, 18-7 or something stupid like that. They would take those wins all season long. Dobbins did look good. I think I have a little bit in my 150 of this. What is his name? McConkey, maybe a little bit of Palmer, maybe a little, but it's just all sprinkle plays to make everything else work. Maybe a little bit of Hayden Hurst, but the premier play in this game would be Dobbins. And again, I mean, any running back outside of those three, Mason, Charbonnet, and Breece Hall, they got to get squeezed a little bit. The ownership has to be relatively low.
Well, we can speed through this one. Almost 250 likes. Again, giving away an annual football membership at 600. And if we get to 750 on the show, we will be bringing back the Stone full on next week. So just keep that in mind. If you're out there, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And Hoop, that game went quick. Let's get to it, though, because now that we're back, we're on to the Dak stack. Let's talk about it. Dak Prescott, Cowboys, Saints. We know what you're doing here. You got the jersey on, and maybe it's after this game when you take it off, but this is the time to talk about it, my friend. Go ahead.
I got the Lion shirt underneath, ready to roll. So we'll talk through this one. If you were with us last season, Dak Prescott made us a shit ton of money. I mean, the community rallied around the situation, and we were able to make it very profitable playing Dak. And the main reason last season that it worked out so well, I mean, I know you guys remember, but it was Tony Pollard week every week, right? Every single week we wanted to play Tony Pollard. He's got the whole backfield to himself. And then Tony Pollard week, I don't think ever worked out until like the end of the season. And everyone's just jamming Pollard. And the Cowboys continued to throw the ball more and more. And it was never Pollard week. It was Dak and CD week. And we made a ton of money. Now, the reason I'm interested in the spot this week, they have Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott as their running backs, right? And I don't think they're going to be a running football team. Dak Prescott got the big contract. He's been much better at home. Last week we hated the spot in Cleveland. They beat the hell out of Cleveland, but it was because of the defense. They didn't need to do anything offensively. And the one thing I noticed last season with the Cowboys and Dak, they keep their foot on the gas pedal. They can be up 20 and they're still throwing in the fourth quarter. A lot of teams are just packing it in. Now, hey, maybe this season it's not the same. Maybe they want to grind it out a little bit with the lead, but I just don't think that's the identity of this team. And, Dak Prescott to me stands out as a solid play. We have a lot of guys at the quarterback position that are going to get ownership around him. Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels going to be relatively high. Dak is going to get squeezed a little bit. We're showing 5. I think it is higher than, or we're showing 3.8. I think it is higher. It's probably closer to 5, I would guess. But to me, he broke so many slates last year. 3% ownership at home. They're projected to score 26 actual points. The Dak to CD stuff looks really solid, I think, this week. And no Ferguson's out, and not that that's a huge thing, but I mean, he definitely garners some attention. Him out, I mean, it should be a ton of Dak to CD in a big way. And on the other side, you don't have to run it back. I know a lot of people in our Discord were talking about it last night. Do I need to run it back with Saints guys? I don't think you necessarily have to. I mean, the Cowboys, they got it done. Dak got it done a lot last year without any run backs. But if you want to, you have options. You can do Kamara. Kamara fits well in a Cowboy stack because you're anticipating the Cowboys playing with the lead. A lot of dump offs to Kamara. You can go Olave. Shaheed got the deep bomb last week, and that was a trend last year too. They're willing to throw in the ball deep down the field. So there are guys you can run it back with. I don't think you have to. The hope, obviously, is if you do, Dak to CD, that the Saints are able to do something in this game and make, score some points to make it a little bit competitive, and then you get the back and forth. But I think really, really good spot to go with Dak. And yeah, it's a business decision. We talked about it all last year because I don't think when it comes to winning football games, which we saw in the playoffs last year, that Dak is a very good quarterback. But for 1 week daily fantasy, he's got the job done a lot for his last season, and I think he has a great chance to do it this week.
Yeah, we'll talk about guys that don't get the job done for Millie Makers very often later on when we get there. # never Mahomes. But you can build your player pool this week title just off quarterback nicknames and stack Prescott. We already talked about Lamar Stackson. We got all these quarterbacks that we can stack up. We'll get to Matthew Stafford later on. But all these quarterbacks we're using pretty much have a nickname. And like Hoop said, the only thing I will say is a couple of guys brought it up here. Can they push the tempo? All of that. I posted a little tidbit in the Discord yesterday I think it was Jake Trivett put out there. Kamara looks pretty good in these spots, and especially with that pressure coming at Derek Carr, all of that, he could just start racking them up. He is 7,000 on DraftKings, which is different than a lot of the guys that you'd be pivoting off of are already in that range. So if you are on Dak stacks, even have Schoonmaker to make it cheaper and get some more money back. There's a lot of ways you can go. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that's the Kamara Olave stuff, because no one's talking the Saints side. I mean, if Hoop likes Dak, I'm in on Dak. I learned last year, I played him some weeks, not others. Could have made a lot more money with, as people are mentioning here, some people had their best years last year because of the Dak stuff. Dak, good. CD, very good. Obvious right there. I don't have any interest in the running backs, Rico or Zeke. We just talked about Dobbins for cheap. We just talked about Mason for cheap. They're in a timeshare. I think you just need the nut outcome for them to be on the winner. So easy Dak with CD. Schoonmaker is interesting because, I mean, I think he's going to be higher than 1.6%. If he's 7-8%, plus 200 touchdown prop is very good. Now, again, we talked about it multiple times this year. With DK, what they did with their touchdown props, it feels like they're upcharging 25%. Is he really, truly plus 200? Probably not. He's 16.5 receiving props. So if I'm going Dak, it's almost probably all CD. I don't mind Cooks. He got there last week as well. The other side with the Saints, I like Olave, though. I saw some people mentioning it in chat. I mean, the Panthers, right away, Saints got the ball. They went down and scored. First play for the Panthers, a pick. Right away, I think they scored 3. Like, that game got out of hand so fast, they didn't need to throw the ball. This game does not look like that at all. 7-point dogs should be thrown at all 4 quarters. Olave, great price tag. I'm in. And just like what you said, Kamara, him in a trailing script is also good. PPR monster. Carr can dump it down against pressure as well. I don't mind Kamara, Olave. Kamara probably more in Dak stuff because you get a little run back on the other side. Olave, I think you can use as a one-off. But I like this spot. It's just there's such limited targets on the Cowboys side with Dak, which is, I guess I'll throw it to you quick. Are you going to be mixing in a lot of Cooks? And like Tolbert doesn't seem like a guy you like. Schoonmaker, how are you playing Dak? Just Dak, CD, and move on?
No, I do have a lot of Schoonmaker. I should have talked about him a little bit more when we were breaking down the game. There are a couple tight ends at his price point that will get more ownership. I agree with you. It might end up being higher than, what do we have, 1.6%? Yeah, it's probably a little bit higher than that. But I do have a lot more I'll just tell you right now. Actually, let me pull it up.
Also, too, I should note that this I brought up first thing, like when I woke up 6 a.m. Eastern time, that I pulled this up. This will be updated here shortly.
When you're eating your pancakes, looking at that cut?
Yes, people putting the giant cut from MMA after I already got my own wound cut in when I got dropped out of the showdown setup there. But we won't go into that story right now. But I like the Schoonmaker call. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm way over the field on that. So if he's coming in at like 2%, let's say, I got like 4 or 5x that. So I'll be way over on him. Cooks, I'm definitely getting Cooks. I mean, for sure. And then Tolbert, probably some sprinkles just because I know I'm going to have a lot of Dak. So yeah, I'm going to play all these guys at CD 1 and Schoonmaker 2, and then some Cooks and Tolbert.
Yeah, that'd be painful. We're
listen, man, that's football. I mean, that's football, and it can clearly happen, and it ruins the Dak stuff immediately. I mean, if they somehow end up at the 1 yard line and Zeke gets 2 touchdowns, yeah, it ruins the Dak stuff for sure. It's not going to be good. The Dak stuff is probably dead at that point, but hey, that's the NFL, that's DFS, that's gambling. That's what happens. We come back next week with a new game plan.
You come back to the afternoon slate or the showdown tonight.
Showdown is going to be solid.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's the thing too. And it's just, if you have a lot of lineups, it's a portion of your portfolio. Every week you're going to have 80% of it die if 20% of it goes well, or vice versa, and flip around. Some weeks 100% is going to go bad. Some weeks multiple quarterbacks are going to be fighting for the optimal, and you've got 20% of both of them. Like it's all different ways, but it's a long-term game that we play. Shohei Ohtani doesn't hit 700%. He goes to the plate, best hitter going right now. Judge, whoever you want to put in the mix. I'm saying that they're not going to hit home runs and grand slams every single time. So you got to have a portfolio.
That is definitely in the realm of possibilities. Zeke 2 1-yard touchdown runs. That is a scenario that has a chance of playing out in this game. There's no doubt about it. As much as I don't like Zeke and like the Cowboys passing stuff today, I mean, if that happens, wouldn't be shocked one bit.
Yeah, we're just trying to put ourselves in position. I think what Title said, one last thing on this, and we'll move on. But Olave, no one wants to play him. Even on FanDuel too, 6,700. They now have the bonuses, all of that stuff, everything but the half-point PPR. But he's more, to me, going to be a guy like 4 for 120 and a touchdown. Like, that's a solid day, and only 6,700 when you got 10K more to spend over there. So just if you are stacking this up, CD, Schoonmaker gets you the money back, Olave, or Alvin Kamara. People are talking about Taysom Hill. I never get into that, but if you usually play him, I got no problem with you going there. Now, over 750 people watching, just about to hit 300 likes. We are still on pace to hit the 600 to give away the free membership, which is it's a full season annual for football, which includes college football. It's going to have Shiptimizer, all of that, the $299 package. But you got to get to the 750. So get started. If you're just joining us, smash the like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Title, I'm going to go to you here. Bucks, Lions, definitely one of the target games. Our guy, Steven Neighbors, was asking earlier about the overstacking and how Hoop did it to win the Millie. And this is the thing about the Stone. We already hit it up with a color code, so you can kind of find those games to get that idea. And this one, look at all the color coding on this game title. So take us through this one.
Quick question, Hoop. What week was yours? Was there bye week, so it was a smaller slate than 13?
It was week 4, so I don't think there was a ton of buys. So I'm pretty sure it was more of like a fuller slate with like the 12 games.
Yeah, interesting. So it is standalone, the highest total on the slate by over 3 points. As you can see, all these color codes, if you see a full game, as you guys probably know, all orange, usually probably not a great game to target. You see various colors here. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start on the Bucs side. Chris Godwin was the absolute man last week. He's primarily in the slot again. Baker looked really good. Mike Evans had a great game too. It's when you play Baker, it's really easy because you can easily play Rachaad White with him. He's pretty much another running back, safety valve for him, plenty of PPR upside. You can play Mike Evans. You can play Godwin. I mean, Jalen McMillan dropped a touchdown last week too, so I don't know how much I really want to go to him with how soft pricing is this week, but I don't hate it in Baker stuff. And then I guess if you want K-Dot and 2, talk about a 1% own in Baker stuff. But I mean, I love Godwin. A lot of people, you see, Godwin's almost 3 times higher owned than Mike Evans this week. Baker, Mike Evans, you don't need to go Godwin. You get a little leverage off of them there. Double stack. You could even go Baker, Evans, talking onslaught. Baker, White, Evans, Godwin, run it back with you pick your poison. Jameson probably would make the most sense because of pricing there. Lion side as well. You can go Goff. You can go Gibbs, another pass catching back right there. Amon-Ra coming off an awful week. I mean, he's going to be just fine this year. I'm not worried. Jameson looked phenomenal. Laporta, 5% owned. A lot of people are punting tight end this week with Atkins because of Njoku's out. Parkinson with the Rams beat up. We talked about Schoonmaker. If you want to flip the build, Laporta goes out there and gets you 100-plus yards and a touchdown. You probably need him. Enough value at other positions. So many ways to go. I still do prefer the Bucs side of the ball if I have to pick. I prefer White because Gibbs and Montgomery are still battling. They pretty much were an even split week 1. If you want to play Montgomery, I'm fine with that. I think Gibbs has more upside, which is why he's my preferred play. Evans, Godwin, Amon-Ra, Jameson, both really good there. I do definitely prefer Laporta over K-Dot in teams, but any which way you can stack this, I'm going right back to the Baker, Evans, Godwin, White stuff. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys are doing, if you're overstacking it or what.
Did Renfro sign with the Bills? Is that true or right?
Oh, really? Damn,
maybe some people know. I have to see. It says 6 days ago, but I don't know, if it's just practice squad or whatever. I haven't seen the guy for a minute. They were talking about busting out the Renfro jersey. Obviously, some people have been with us for quite a while and know that Hoop's done pretty well with calling out these shots and these jerseys, the business decisions that we now call. So give us some decisions on this one, Hoop. We got Bucks, Lions. I think Title handled it quite well, but like we said, there's just so many ways you can go. And I said it all day. Jared, go off. That's the guy today. I like the Baker side too quite a bit. Baker's my guy, but I think both these games, and the good news is I like Baker. Jared Goff pushes him. Did we lose Hoop?
You're good. We can hear you.
Messed up the whole operation here. You guys got me now?
Gotcha.
The Dak jersey, man.
Hang on.
You have
talk
us?
for a second. The
full
headphones got
Dak
disconnected.
destruction over here, man. He took off the jersey and shit. What do you expect? All right, we'll talk about it then. I really like the Baker side more. I'm using the Jared Goff nickname, but I just think there's so many ways that you can go with it. You talked about the only way I'm really getting Otten in there is in these stacks, but Godwin is too cheap. Basically, the spot that we saw Cooper Kupp in last week, now at 6,000. I know he comes with ownership, so you got to play him a little bit differently and overstacking the game or having him in there with Jameson Williams or Sam Laporta. You can go Baker, Godwin, McMillan, and run it back with Laporta. You can put it in with Williams. You can put Gibbs in there to keep the back and forth going. There's a lot of ways, and that's why this is a target game for us, that you can get to this one and then just think about when you're filling out your lineup with if you want some Pacheco to get some pieces of the Kansas City game, if you want some, Kupp or Parkinson or whatever else with James Conner to get a piece of that game, these are the games to target. You are allowed to put them all together. We got you, Hoop. You back?
Yeah. I mean, taking off the Dak jersey resulted in a disconnection from audio. So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. But
you don't play Dak today, all your lineups are going down, just like you went down.
Yeah, all right, that makes sense. All right, so going right into obviously another really good game, big total, big team total for the Lions. I believe highest on the slate. A ton of plays on both sides. I went back and forth on the Baker stuff. I think there some concerns. I guess one big concern for me is what we saw last week with this Lions defense, how they're getting to Stafford like instantly. Stafford adjusted well and started to just get the ball out super quick. If the Lions can get to Baker, like is he smart enough to start getting the ball out quick? If he is, Chris Godwin could have like a monster game today. So for me, if deciding between Godwin and Evans, I definitely prefer Godwin, but he is coming in with much higher ownership. Evans, easy to get overweight on. He's the guy, it only takes a couple plays for him to get there. 5% ownership on him. Rachaad White, I think, is a fine option at 63. But at the end of the day, I did end up getting to Baker on DraftKings for sure. I'm not sure if I'm playing him on FanDuel just because there's a lot of other guys, but on DK, definitely like him there. The Lions side, so many different ways to go. And that's what makes it fun when you have a team projected to score so many points and so many different ways to go offensively. We talked about it on the first Lick show with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think it's a great bounce back spot. He looked really bad last week. A lot of teams looked bad week one. It's kind of like their preseason. These guys don't really play preseason anymore. Week one can be a preseason for a lot of these guys. Good spot for him. And I don't think he comes in with that much ownership. Like we're showing 18, everyone around the industry is showing like 18 to 20. I could see it being lower. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 13, 14 range. So I really want to be on Amon-Ra St. Brown today. I think it's a really good bounce back spot for him. Jameson Williams, I've been pretty clear about him. I'm playing him every week. He's going to break multiple slates, I think, this season, and I want to be on it. He's going to have a monster season. Week one was obviously big for him. I think he continues. Yes, there's obviously going to be a couple letdown games, I'd say, throughout the season, but I'm going to just play him every week. 53 on DK, 57 on FanDuel. I think he's a fine play. Both sites. Laporta, no one's going to be comfortable with either of those price tags. The 63 on DK, people just want to go cheaper at tight end. And then 79 on FanDuel, that's like a big boy price tag. We're showing, what are we showing for the – that can't be right. 13% on. There's no chance he's 13% on.
Who are you talking about?
Laporta?
Laporta on FanDuel. Yeah, he's going to probably be like 8.
Yeah, it's going to be lower, definitely lower than that.
Well, we'll see. There is I built a lot of lineups this week over there, and it is really easy to get to him. So, and nobody's doing like Schoonmaker, or not as many people, sorry, I should say, are doing Schoonmaker, Parkinson, all these cheap guys, because you just don't necessarily need it over there. So McBride, super popular, but then if people have the money, they're going up to Laporta. So it is a little something.
Really like him. And then, Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, you have so many ways to go. Like I said, if you're stacking the Tigers, if you're stacking the Lions and you're getting exposure to the Bucs, like it's a premier game for sure. A lot of different ways to go, and go Lions.
Yeah, the good news is, and we hope this doesn't happen. I particularly hope this doesn't happen. But if Baker does have a bad game after last week, everyone's saying, "Oh, look at Baker. He's going off. He's the MVP." They're just making fun of him, obviously. But he did have a really good first week. But he would get his own nickname, which would be he's not real. Therefore, he's Faker Mayfield, because we'll get the game and we'll see how it goes. But I do like this game quite a bit. Our guy Hamwich in the chat talking about should be 100% on Laporta, but. Title, I'll let you take us into the next game. Before we do, though, just your thoughts on that. I did see some cash builds for FanDuel, just working through it, where you can kind of get to Godwin, Laporta and land on that no problem and still have a stacked up lineup with all those other plays that we've got with Mason and things over there. So did you have any thought more on Laporta just over on FanDuel?
6,200 McBride. Like, I can't pay the extra 1,700 in terms of cash games, and that's why we were talking the tournament, why I thought it maybe be a little lower owned. But to your point, too, with Mason and so much – Godwin's so cheap, like 6,200 is a joke. Plenty of good 5K guys. Jameson's 5.7. Where maybe, like you said, people will find the money, overspend for tight end, and it does get to 13. But
I did have one quick thing. Sorry to cut you off, but I forgot it when I was going before I give you Colts Packers. But I also don't know if I fully believe Amon-Ra ownership, because
I think it's lower too.
It's
definitely lower. It's going to be like I really think it has a chance to be like 13 or below. I think
I agree.
I just everyone has it. It's not just us. Everyone has it right around here, like 18, 20 range. Not buying.
Let's just say to everyone out there that probably knows, predicting ownership in any sport is very, very, very hard. That's for sure.
That's what they're called, projections, right? We always try and explain that to people. Their ownership projections, what we are thinking it's going to come in. And obviously things change, but that's why on a show like this, we also try and talk through it to see where we may find some discrepancies. Not only did Jameson Williams, I mean, people were worried about him. It was pretty much seemed like he was going to play all week anyway, but not only has it said this morning, likely to play, it's that I just don't see people getting to 8,100, and definitely on FanDuel, he's like, I don't see it. I just don't see that ownership coming in there for him. Go ahead, Tyler.
He's a really, really good play today. I think he is one of the best tournament plays out there.
Yeah, and it's a good way to play Godwin if you want to on their side when you're going Goff with Amon-Ra, and even if you can afford Laporta, it's up to you. But I'm saying you could build it up this side, run it back with this side, and then get away with that ownership when these guys end up coming in lower like we suspect. All right, Title, go ahead. Enough on that one. Colts, Packers, next up. Anthony Richardson, super popular last week, not so much this week. And then other guys with him getting like no ownership as well.
Yeah, this game is kind of gross because obviously no Jordan Love to carry the Packers to score points. At home in Lambeau, Packers have a very good defense. You can always play A-Rich, but this is not a week I really want to because I don't think Packers are going to keep up. I think they're going to just pound JT if they can. Coming back home, he played at Wisconsin, but 7,700, he's my only interest in this game. If I do, I'm good on a Willis stack. I like my cheese in my own pocket. Colts side, though, JT at 77.
My own pocket. I like that.
Yeah, I don't want to give it to DK or other people. But JT, 77, just completely overspend. There's enough value on the slate. You can go Mason. You can go Dobbins. You can do any of the chalky. And then you add JT. If they do get their 3.5-point favorites, expected to score a touchdown, 4% own. 7%, you're overweight. That is really the only spot I'm looking at in this game to try and get a little overweight. Colts defense too. Yep, you went down there. It's Malik Willis at the end of the day. Now, the thing is, if this is a relatively close game like this throughout, I think the Packers are just going to try and pound the football or have short passes. And then it's like, okay, well, you want your defense to have opportunities. Like, there's nothing better when your quarterback drops back 50 times and why some people play defenses in game stacks, because you do want the chance for a pick six, fumble return, sacks, all of that. You can't get points when they just run the football up the gut every single time. So while I'm cool with the Colts, and I do prefer Colts if I play JT, I don't even love them as much because I would rather take shots on defenses when I expect the other team to drop back more. This is just a really gross game and not one I really have any interest in.
Super key component as well, what you just talked about. Mayo and I always talk about it. He sort of pins that out, but people just automatically want to roll a defense against the backup, but not actually think about what the game plan looks like. The difference is too, is the spread seems crazy to me. They're only 3.5. I know they're on the road. I know it's Lambeau. Like, it's just, to me, I just thought.
They got a good defense. Packers can play D this year.
That's true. So all I was going to say, and I'll kick it to you, Hoop, was I love the Stone. This is why I love the Stone. It's biased, but not even. Like, when you have it pegged perfectly, it's like if you were going to Anthony Richardson, you can go to the guy that had probably 2 touchdowns walk-in missed last week. It's worth a shot. If you wanted to play Pittman, you can see here that there's leverage on that. If you want to play the Colts D, you can see how they project well with Taylor. And then on the other side, it probably is the only two that I would have interest in is Reed, the way he's played and the way their setup is. And then Jacobs is basically the same matchup that we saw Mixon in last week, just absolutely crush. And if Willis, if that is their game plan, the only worry I would have for Jacobs is if the Colts plan is to just stop the run and say, make Willis do it. But even then I wonder, who can't Willis like scramble a little bit and hit those check downs to Jacobs? So I actually have tournament interest in Josh Jacobs here, as gross as it might be. And I have definite interest in Jonathan Taylor as a pivot on the other side off of all these other running back plays that people are going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a little bit of Josh Jacobs. I don't hate it. Could get a lot of work here, obviously. And if somehow they get a lead, like if somehow the Packers are playing with a lead, have to imagine they're going to lean on Jacobs in a big way. But the main thing for me in this game is Jonathan Taylor. It just seems like it's a Jonathan Taylor type game. Ownership should remain very low. He's one of very few running backs that actually has a significant price tag, a relatively high price tag. Could be a multiple touchdown game. I think this is a week we could see those older generation running backs like the Jonathan Taylors and the Derrick Henrys kind of get the job done today with like multiple touchdowns. So sign me up for Jonathan Taylor, low ownership. Would not be surprised if he gets a couple. And similar to me, a similar play as Derrick Henry. It was a question. I don't mind. I do a lot of survivor pools as well, and I don't hate going with the Colts. There's like six plays this week that everyone's going to, and this ownership in survivor is going to get spread out for that reason. Colts, I don't hate. I don't hate them as a play.
I was going to bring it up. I play a little bit this year too because there was a big overlay on this one that I got in. It was $1 million. I don't like it only because this is when it happens. Like when exactly what he said, no chance they lose.
Yeah.
They're on the road. I don't like this setup at all. I would just, play a safer play and move on. I think the Ravens are great.
Ravens, The nice thing about going the Ravens today is you don't want to use a team that's going to be like very, very highly owned, but there's like so many teams favored by 6 or 7 that are going to get picked this week. Like going just to the Ravens, I think makes a ton of sense. I have a majority Ravens just because I know it's going to be lower than
what are the Chargers doing? I don't play Survivor much, but are they going to be pretty popular?
I think Chargers are probably my second pick for the week. Ravens.
This is when it always happens, though. Early in the season, especially like the last 3 years, it's when these road teams that people play that they're just so much conviction after one good week, and then it's like that's what ends up happening. So I just looked at that. Someone said, "Here's your play all season long." Whoever's playing Carolina, they might go earlier. I think Jake, our guy, Jake the Take. I think he said we're looking at 1-16. So that would be a good way to get your W's in. I've got nothing more on this game. About to cross 400 likes, so let's keep that rolling. 800 people watching. We appreciate all of you on this Sunday. We talked earlier, Sunday Fun Day. This is Sin Day, Win Day. So if you're here with us, we're here to get the job done. That's what we're going to try and do. So let's move on, Hoop. I'm going to go to you here. Browns, Jags. There is some colors popping, but man, it's tough. But what if it is week 2, right? There is some Amari Cooper, like no ownership. Akins is, somewhat interesting with no Njoku. Amari Cooper, that you got to add that in as well. No Njoku. Like that's kind of the setup there. Ford popped a little for me in tournaments. And then everybody wanted Ingram last week. Nobody wants him now. So thoughts on this one, Hoop? Browns, Jags.
Yeah, not a great game from a fantasy perspective, and we have a lot of games today, so you don't need to get involved in every single game on the slate. The Browns obviously looked terrible last week. Deshaun Watson looked terrible. Could he bounce back and look better this week? Yeah, I mean, maybe, but if he has the monster game and you need Deshaun Watson and Brown stacks to win, it's not going to be my week. I will have some Akins, and that's it, I believe, on the Brown side. Jaguars, it's a little bit of Ingram. This Thomas Jr. Kid looked good. Maybe a little bit of Kirk, and that's about it. But it's small ownership percentages for me in this game on Akins. Akins, I have a decent chunk of, but Ingram, Thomas, Kirk, just a little bit of those 3, and that's really it for me in this game. I'm not messing with that stuff. I mean, if it's Ford and Cooper, like that's fine. Well, I'll move on to next week.
I would take Cooper as a one-off, especially on FanDuel, 6,300. Like just play again.
The FanDuel price is nice for him, yeah.
And the FanDuel price is nice. I like that. Yeah. So you can do some stuff that way, but it is a tougher spot to get to. Obviously, it's just if you thought something else was popping. If you like Cooper, you like Akins, I could see where you go. Watson, Kirk, get some of that stuff, but it's not going to be a heavily owned game for me. Title, your thoughts, Browns, Jags? We could probably move on quick.
Yeah, we can. First of all, I wanted to touch on this. Main slate, NFL, you do not need to worry about salary. Zeroing it out, 100 left. It's not like Showdown. So many combinations with 13 games, so I wouldn't worry about that. And yeah, I wanted to point out the one, if there was any weather game, pretty much any game in Florida, you never know with pop-up storms, all that. There could be some rain, so if you see it, I at least wanted to talk about it. Deshaun Watson looked awful. So Jags D, I mean, I'm in on some Jags D right here on a game I don't have much interest. 4-point favorites at home. Otherwise, no one really on the Jags side. There's just so many options. Is it going to be a Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas, Kirk, Ingram, ETN? Tank Bigsby looked really good last week. ETN had a big fumble at the goal line. So that could timeshare could close as the season goes on. Just too many pieces there. I'm good on the Jags side. Browns, Akins is the same as Schoonmaker. Both are plus 200 to score. Like, no chance these dudes' true odds are plus 200. Last year would have been like plus 450.
Such a terrible market, man. Like the sport. I mean, sports betting is a huge part of what we do in our community, obviously. But man, those touchdown props are just criminal. And like, how do you plus 200 to score and doesn't even have a receiving prop like line up there? So yeah, I mean, he's gonna get like 8% Akins. It just feels like I'd rather take shots on other of these tight ends. I said that last week. Tight end absolutely blew up, and Pitts somehow got there because of one touchdown. But I think I want to avoid these spots, these cheap punt tight ends where you're literally just hoping to fall in the box once as much as I can, especially because I'm not playing Deshaun. Cooper, yeah, he'll be very low owned. I like Olave more in that same range at low ownership too, so I'm not sure how much I get there. Jerome Ford, I'd be fine with 8%. Use him at a really concentrated running back position.
hope to get different that way. But no, I don't like much of this game at all.
Yeah, not really much going there. Title, I'll stay with you. This is a game you probably have a little bit more interest in at least, but going to talk about Mason, going to talk about all this. You can even talk cash versus GPP and stuff, but we see it here. Like Mason's going to be much higher owned than we have it right now when the final numbers come out. So obviously Mason, the talking point, but a bunch of different ways you can go within this game. And then your guy, Justin Jefferson, on the other side. So I'll let you start with this one. 49ers, Vikings, decent total. Good spot, good game. I think this is a sneaky one. So let's talk about 49ers Vikings.
I do too. Yeah, Jordan Mason will be the most popular on the slate. You play him in cash games. I'm playing him in tournaments too. I mean, a guy that gets the ball 20 plus times in this scheme, in this offense, implied for this total in a dome. He's a great play. There's no doubt about that. That's talking building a portfolio though. You have 20 teams. Doesn't mean you have 100% Jordan Mason. You can have 10 teams with them, 10 teams without. Good play in all formats. I like the Brock Purdy stuff. He's going to be one of my higher owned quarterbacks on the slate because you can play him with Mason for the price tag. Mason can catch the ball a little bit. But in lineups you fade Mason, Purdy, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, you have clear 3 guys that you can pair him with. Again, and then if you're not playing Mason, you get some leverage off of the running game. Even if you do play Mason that lineup, he gets you 14 points. Purdy, you still 4%. Debo, he's going to be popular. Ayuk's a clear pivot for 300 less. Kittle, you're overspending at the position. That is a way Chalk Debo can bust. Chalk Mason can bust. I love the 49ers stuff. So many ways you can do that, and you get off some of the chalk. You can play some of the chalk with it. Sign me up for the 49ers and the Purdy stuff. Vikings, Sam Darnold looked good. I mean, part of it, maybe the Giants are just that bad. When you have the best receiver in football with you, though, it makes it easier. I always manually bump Jefferson. That 10% could be like 7%, 8%, something. I'm in on him. I don't know. Running back's so loaded on this slate. Like, do I even want to mess with Aaron Jones? Probably more game stack stuff if I do. If I am playing Purdy and all of that, you get a really low-owned running back who always has the upside, can catch some passes out of the backfield. Other than Jones and Jefferson, though, I have no interest on the Vikings side. But, yeah, I like the Niners.
Just got to dial my man Richard in right quick. You know, we're fans of all the people within our community, but you know what we like to do, Richard. If you watch the top of the show, we're all about paying it forward. We're all about giving it back. That's what the community is about. We had such a big showing last week and appreciated all the likes, the new subscribers, the people coming in. We decided to keep it free. It won't be up next week if we don't get 750, and that was clear on the show live. But also, they're just missing out on so much. Like, if they want to hand take projections away, they're not going to get those. You'd have to be on the site. No showdown content at all. None of the core reports, value reports with our guy Scarface. Shout out to him, a huge night in MMA again last week between Hoop, him, and everybody else we've got going on just in MMA. That's huge. Player pool, slate plan, the stack rankings, which are massive. They're just seeing the ranking. They have no idea who it's actually targeting within those. All of the other slates that we cover and everything else. So it's not really giving much away. It's just letting people know what we're all about. And it's easier than us sitting there marketing the whole site to you the whole time. We know we've got the goods. Everyone has it. We see it Monday. You'll see another video tomorrow of all the screenshots, the people that are finding success. It's what ends up happening in a community when you get these type of people together. So happy to have you a part of it, but we're not just giving it away. There's a mindset behind why we do this. So Hoop, let me go to you. 49ers and Vikings. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, just this is a great tool, obviously, but it's just one part of what we do, and people use our site and our content for a variety of different reasons, and we made it very clear, like, we don't want people coming to our site and just looking for Hoop's cores or Tambo's cores or Scarface cores. Like, everything that we offer is just one piece of the puzzle. It's an all-encompassing product, and the stone is one piece. Yes, it's a very nice piece. And yeah, if people want to sit here and like screenshot it as we go along throughout the show, like, I mean, have at it. So this just, it makes it nice to talk through the games, looking at something like this. And I think it's valuable for everyone, members, non-members, YouTube community, whoever's listening. In terms of this game, yeah, I'm with Title, man. The 49ers stuff looks really nice, even outside of Mason, who's going to be very popular, Debo, who's going to be very popular. There's plays still, and there's ways to get different. Purdy to Ayuk. I got the name right. You guys, the guy in the chat was I've been practicing my Ayuk pronunciation. So I think he is a great play in this game. Much lower ownership than Debo. Probably got a full week of practice, had the contract stuff going on. Love him, and then love Kittle. I mean, Kittle at low ownership. We're showing 3% on DraftKings. If Mason and Debo don't get there, the 49ers are still scoring some points. And it's got to go to somebody, and it's probably Ayuk or Kittle. I think they're great plays. I'm going to play a lot of Debo. I'm going to play a lot of Mason. But, the pivots and the leverage plays, definitely those two, Ayuk and Kittle. And then on the Vikings side, the same thing as I kind of said last week. Do I think Sam Darnold is a great NFL quarterback? No, probably not. But he looked pretty darn good, and we kind of thought he would last week. And they only needed offensive production for the first half because they beat the shit out of the Giants last week. So I think it's like 11 for 12 to start the game. If it was a close game, I imagine he would have had a really, really good fantasy score. They just did not need it. I think he can do enough to keep the pace, to put up some points here and force the 49ers to go a little bit offensively. So with that being said, like Justin Jefferson is obviously the clear guy, and I could see him in single digits. We're showing 10.5. I could see it 7-8% because of the other guys. I mean, Debo's getting a ton of ownership. Cooper Kupp's getting a ton of ownership. Who are some of these other, Rashee Rice, who we'll talk about in a little bit, is going to get ownership. Chris Godwin's going to get a lot of ownership. So CD's going to get ownership. And I think he could, we didn't talk about it a ton, but I think he could get squeezed a little bit too.
I think so too.
Yeah. I don't think, everyone's showing 25%. I think CD could be down 18-ish% because of these guys are getting played. Kupp's getting played. Debo's getting played.
Hoops getting played. His internet's getting played. Sorry for Hoopster today, but hopefully those DAC stacks come through for our man Hoop. We got to get him set up proper. He might be right back. So I'll wait.
Check your
mic, Hoop. Check your mic.
All right, man.
You might be good.
Yeah, I think it's good now. We good? Yeah. There's so many guys at the wide receiver position that are going to get ownership. Like I could see Justin Jefferson 7-8% or something like that. I want to be over it. It's like kind of like an all-time low price on him, 8,300 on DraftKings. Like he's a 9K wide receiver more times than not. So I'm very interested in Jefferson. I'm very interested in the 49ers side, and the ways to get different on the 49ers side is Ayuk and Kittle.
Our man slipped us a couple bucks over here. Got to give him a heads up. So shout out to Jason. You can clarify further, but it sounds to me like are people playing?
He's asking if we should go more 3 running backs now because passing was down week 1 and more running.
Take it, Title. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not only that also, but like each week we say is independent to the other. No Kenneth Walker, so there's Charbonnet. No McCaffrey, and they didn't adjust the pricing, so Mason's way too cheap. Kyron Williams, there's no Puka. His price is still there. Great. So there is merit to what you're saying. There was a lot more running. Part of that probably just, the preseason, like week 1 was like preseason. It's easier to run the football than throw it when not everyone's on the same page. So I do think there's merit to that. I do think 3 running backs has always been in play. Like we've talked a lot of 4 receiver stuff. We talked about it in the cash show a lot. Just a full point PPR upside. That's DraftKings. There's more upside there, but yes, you can 3 running back is very, very viable. And we did see a lot more running than passing this week. So 100%.
Yeah. They want you to put the jersey back on, Hoop. I think that's the key, but hopefully that answers it for Jason. I will say just a couple quick things. One note from earlier. We did this show on Monday. Nade's brought it up, but if you go to this show here, it's on our YouTube. You should be subscribed if you're here. Go to the week 1. It's a free show. At the 14-minute mark, we show how you can use the tools. We don't have to go through and sell you on everything else and do all of that. Like our main point is just to get to the business on these shows, especially for Sundays. Your guys' time is important. We live by the mantra, less is more. We try and get right to it for you guys. So that's going to be our focus on these shows. On this game, I think Title, this could be a classic Title spot of there's levels to this shit because when people aren't going Mason, and they should be going Mason, we already know this. There's other ways, and I'll go to it in a second. But when they aren't going Mason, I think the automatic is Debo. And we're going to see a big Ayuk or a big Kittle week. So it's almost like every lineup this week. I think, I can't say 100%, but a large majority of my lineups have at least one 49er in it. Because it's going to be the spot. You can play Brock Purdy and leverage it. You could play Brock Purdy with Mason. When you're looking for ways to get different with Mason is what I'm trying to help people find here is you can play him with Purdy. We see it all the time and then pick another guy with it or something, or just run those 2 and Jefferson on the run back. Kittle, nobody's really talking about him. 3% here, maybe a little more on FanDuel, just because, like we said, that range is sort of getting hit a little bit because he's $200 more than McBride over there as well, who we'll get to. But then also, like Hoop said earlier, Darnold with Jefferson, you got Naylor with no Addison. Johnny Munt, the punt, is $100 more than Colby Parkinson. So you can run Darnold, Jefferson, Munt, and run it back with Ayuk when everybody else has Mason or Debo. Or you're already different enough. That's how you could play Mason and be different. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go. Go ahead, Title.
I pulled that up earlier.
Pulled that up. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason that we saw a lot of running last week. All these teams are doing the two high safeties, and I'd imagine quarterbacks are just checking out of pass plays and saying, "Hey, if you're going to keep two guys like up high like that, we'll just run the ball." Could the trend continue? Yeah, but I don't think you can make a hard and fast rule after week one that you're going to build teams based on teams running more and not passing as much.
I will say, like, it worked so well in week one, and we saw it a lot in the Miami, the Thursday game. Like, defense was rather you make 16 play drives and dink and dunk than the one play Tyreek goes for 70. So there's definitely merit to that, and that is part of the reason too.
We got to a quick 435 as soon as I popped that up. People want the prize. 600 gets the annual. 750 while we're live gets us back to the stone again for next week. So you guys can keep that in mind. Avery, I see your question about Shiptimizer. I'm not going to pull it up just because we want to keep the show rolling, but we have a Shiptimizer channel in the Discord. We've got two guys in there that we brought on this week. Shout out to our guy, John Triscutt in the Discord and Jordan Newens in the Discord. They're able to help you out with that question. They can talk to you about how you can get it dialed in. Title, I'll stick with you. Seahawks, Patriots. I think the Charbonnet stuff with obviously Kenneth Walker III is something, maybe a little Ramondre in tournaments, but give me your thoughts on this one quickly.
Yeah, what you just said. Charbonnet is obviously the easy play. No Kenneth Walker this week. Charbonnet was already really good mixing in with Kenneth Walker. Now with none, I'm expecting a workhorse. 3.5-point favorites, 20+ touches at 5,800. Just another spot where the running back room is. That's what, like Aaron Jones that we just talked about, 3%. Charbonnet right here, 10%. Maybe gets a little more steam. There's so many pivots that you can make, but on paper, projection-wise, Charbonnet is a great play. If you do want leverage off of any of them, I'm not really going to be doing the Geno stuff, but you have DK sub 6K, you have Lockett sub 6K. I don't love the JSN stuff as much this week. I think I prefer Lockett Metcalf. Again, do I love them? No, but 4% DK, 1% Lockett off of some ownership at the running back room. Easy pivot there and chalk your lineups. Patriots side, it's just Ramondre, and man, his work looked good. 25 carries week one. I was worried about the Gibson-Ramondre split coming into the year. Stevenson absolutely ran away with that. Can catch some passes out of the backfield too, dump-offs. Brissett is an absolute statue back there. Both running backs in the game. If you want to get cute, DK or Lockett at very low ownership, but I like the running backs.
My guy, Jay, he got to it right there. I had other ones I wanted to pull up, but that one thing about this, and going back to Survivor, it works for DFS as well. I've looked at this a long time, and this, I think I put more merit into it because the sample size goes many years. People have been traveling for years, mind you, in this sport. So coming from Seattle across, early morning, first thing in the game, playing against the Patriots, I don't care how good or bad their team is and what you think. It's just not always an ideal spot. Down a weapon in Kenneth Walker, who looked really good last week. Charbonnet could be fine, but I think that's why people are hesitant to go to him as much, even though he looks like a very popular value. And I like Ramondre Stevenson after the workload he got last week, and you compare him with the Patriots D, I actually see more people playing Seattle D. I see people talking about them in Survivor. I'm just saying, I think you can go to the other side of this one, Ramondre Stevenson with that Patriots D, and even if you feel like you're chasing, nobody is really chasing. So you're not going with the crowd on the chase. You're still kind of standing out a little bit from what his workload and stats look like in week one. Hoop, other thoughts on that or other thoughts on this game?
Was your spiel an endorsement for the Patriots plus 3.5?
My spiel was an endorsement for Stevenson Patriots mini stack.
Yeah, it sounded like a strong case for Patriots plus 3.5 at home. We got the West Coast team traveling east. Did we got the first official Tambo NFL pick of the season?
I'm going to start Tambo's teasers next and tease them up at home. They're a good number to tease up. You get them to 10.5. Then we another one along the way. We'll get those rolling too.
Tambo's teasers. I love it. Yeah, I'm on the same page as you guys. It's the running backs here. Charbonnet, I think Stevenson, a phenomenal play. I mean, in this day and age, you can get a running back. What did you say it was 26 touches last week? I know as high as somewhere in that range.
25 carries, and I think he caught a couple.
Yeah, there's just not many guys in the NFL that will get that sort of work this day and age. I think he's a really good play. Under 7K on FanDuel, and then 62 on DK. And, yeah, we thought Gibson would get some work, and, man, that just was not the case. They're at home. I think it's a really good spot for him. Charbonnet obviously should get all the work, and then you can play these defenses. Very simple game for me. I'm not messing around with the Metcalf, Lockett, JSN stuff.
Yeah, and I like this one. King of Smack, I wasn't here. Appreciate you supporting, but brings this up. I did a lot of rants on this last year, and they worked out well. A lot of people actually came back, were like, I see the game differently now. They forget, like, if the Patriots put up 20 points, 18 points, whatever, it's not ideal. But from a fantasy scoring point, what if the 14 points are 2 touchdowns and they're both Ramondre touchdowns and he gets 100 on the ground? That would still kill the clock. The game would run through quickly. It'd be low scoring overall, but you could still end up needing someone like Ramondre in that instance. Just falls into the box a couple times. So even in low scoring games, you can find these spots that you need to have or will work for you in fantasy. Title, anything to add there? If not, you can take us into the Jets, Titans. And there's some Breece Hall love this week, right? So we got to talk about this one.
There's some Breece Hall love. There is some Allen Lazard love. When you see that dude at 11%, I'm going to need you guys to talk to me about this because it just feels like a really chalk donkey 11% Allen Lazard right here. Yes, he has a connection with A-Rod. We talked all about it in their last game on Monday, but that was a 1-game slate. Now we have a 13-game slate. Right now, what's telling me is like, man, Lazard looks over-owned, but he is also 3,300 with his guys. So I'm indifferent about that. I need to hear your 2 thoughts. I really like Garrett Wilson, though. Breece Hall, great workload. I mean, he pretty much has no competition. Braylon Allen was irrelevant until that game got out of hand late. Titans, everyone's going to talk about it. Great run defense, just stifled Chicago. The good thing about Breece Hall is he also can catch the ball, can catch screens. He has the explosiveness to take 60 yards to the house at any time. 30%, though. Like, if I had to fade him or Jordan Mason, I mean, I much prefer Jordan Mason. There's no other doubt about that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe 20% Breece Hall for me. I like him. I think there's so many other pivots that we talked about at running back. Ramondre, people saying Jacobs. There's Dobbins, Charbonnet. It's a lot of good running backs. Other side of this game right here, we have Pollard as a high upside play. I don't love it as much. I don't really like any of the Titans because it's still Spears mixing in with Pollard there. There's plenty of weapons. Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd, not a great O-line. Don't like the spot for the Titans mainly. I'm not playing Rodgers. It's really just Breeze, Wilson, Lazard. I think Wilson at ownership and the leverage off of Breece Hall is my favorite spots. But please tell me what to do with Allen Lazard. Not chalk, but I would consider him chalky for the name, the price, and yeah, this slate.
Yeah, he does fit into some of these spots though. At 3,300, it's they talked about it's just what it gets you. It's almost
there's no Allen Lazard free square in the same sentence.
Yeah, we can't call it a free square.
To go zeros.
I was going to elaborate. I was going to bring it up again, but it's sort of like this week. I feel like it's like the Yoshivas thing where you probably are getting that small number. Don't be expecting what you got out of Lazard on game 1. But if it's what you want to do. It's your lineups. But if it gets you something different where you say, I would prefer to have him with this stud instead of these 2 mid-tier guys, that's up to you. It's all how your lineup's playing out. I guess, Hoop, I'll go to you. But the Breece Hall worry is that like the ownership probably is legit. I actually see more people talking about him, pushing him. It seems like it could be up there. And I've seen sharp takes, even from guys on our own site, on the Pollard side. Even Spears as the backup to Pollard, the Titans D versus Aaron Rodgers, who did not look very good last week, and then getting it in on a guy like Wilson instead at a similar price tag. He's not the cheap Lazard guy. He's not the popular running back. He's got some ownership, but his price is, again, you've got who we talked about. We're going to get to Rice, Debo, Kupp, Godwin, all these guys we mentioned. There's just no way Garrett Wilson can fit into that crew. And even you talked about guys like Lamb and them getting potentially squeezed as well at the higher price points also.
Yeah, my favorite part of this game is definitely Garrett Wilson, 7,100, did not do great in that first game. It was a tough spot. They got their asses kicked. I think it's a bounce back game for him at 71. And yeah, ownership should be held in check because there's so many guys that people want to go to. The Allen Lazard thing, I think, is just roster construction is the reason we're seeing the ownership. There's like 2 or 3 guys under 4K that are playable at the wide receiver position. He happens to be one of them. I guess it's kind of one of those situations, not necessarily like what does he do, but like what does he do for the rest of your lineups? And what he does for the rest of your lineup, it allows you to get things you can't get unless you go cheap at wide receiver. So do I love the play? No. Am I on him in 150? Yes. How much is, I actually don't even know how much I have of him. I'm not going to go way overweight on it, but it does make a lot of things work. Garrett Wilson interested. Breece Hall, yeah, I mean, people are really liking Breece Hall, and I'll have him, but like, is he that different than some of these other running back plays that we've already discussed on the show, and there's still more to come? Like, why is he the guy that is so much higher owned than everybody else? Like, why is it him? Could he have the monster game? Yeah, absolutely. But to me, I view him pretty similarly to like a lot of guys that we've already talked about and we're going to talk about, moving forward. So yeah, the number on him is big. And I'm just out on the Titan stuff. Like so many games on the slate. You can't get exposure to everything. I'm just not playing the Titans.
We always talk about on the show, hit the like or take a hike. We also do a moment of silence for the no like violence. So let's just take a couple of seconds here. Good. That gave you time to hit the like. Got to get to 600 to get that annual membership. And I don't think we're going to hit the 750. So this will be the last we see of the live stone. Richard from earlier will be very happy to hear. But again, support it. It's always free. We put it out there for you guys. We really do appreciate it. So make sure you guys go smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Title, let's move on. I got nothing more on that game. We talked through it, but let's go to another one that looks pretty interesting here. The Giants and Commanders. We know Jaden Daniels looking popular in cash games, but tournaments, people are using him as well. There's different ways that you can use them. I'll get to that when we go through it here, but I'll let you take it first. Giants at the Commanders. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll start with 2 interesting plays, and that's both running backs in this game. Singletary on the DraftKings or on the Giants side, less than 4% we're showing. A starting running back that can easily get 20-plus touches in this game against a bad defense as a pivot from all these other guys we've talked about. So, again, you have 8%. You're double the field. I was on him last week. Didn't work out, but I'm good going right back there. Neighbors is the only other one on the Giants side that I have interest in. The price is great. The hype out of preseason was great, but he also has Danny Dime, as you like to say. Dimes, he does not deserve the extra S. Yeah, I mean, we tried to take a shot on it last week. We were definitely wrong. I am not taking – there's no better spot against this awful Commanders team, and I still saw enough from Danny Dime not to be playing that dude this week. So that probably means I'll be under on Neighbors. If I'm not playing any of the QB, a pretty chalky one-off we see with Neighbors at a loaded receiver position. Singletary is my favorite. You get some leverage off of Neighbors, the only piece of that side. Commanders I like. So Daniels is getting ownership, and that's the Brian Robinson interest. We talked about it Thursday night. Like, if Josh Allen doesn't get there, how does he not get there? James Cook rushes 2 or 3. Well, that happened. Brian Robinson nothing's ever easy to score 2-3 touchdowns, but you can paint a picture on how he does get there. Instead of Daniels getting the rushing touchdowns, it is Robinson. No ownership, a pivot in that range. I'm going to be playing some Brian Robinson there. I like Jaden Daniels, though. I mean, mini Lamar is what I see in him. He's only $185 soaking wet, but that dude's movement, his vision in the pocket. Hoop and I talked a lot on the Cash Show. I mean, he can break any slate. So in on Daniels, you can play him naked. My favorite way to play Jaden Daniels, actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this in 2024, is with old dusty Zach Ertz. They love him. They absolutely love him. And at a tight end position, when people are going Parkinson, Aikens, Schoonmaker for cheap, pay a little more. He's always on the field, the security blanket in the middle. Zach Ertz, Daniels is my favorite way to pair. Can always go Terry, though. McCaffrey would be the only other one. Do I love that? No, because you can play Daniels naked at the end of the day if you want. But both those running backs I will be looking to get. They offer a lot of leverage on both sides.
99 likes away. I liked a couple calls there, actually. This is the one we always see, and it's in cash games all the time. People play the quarterback, then they play Parkinson. And you don't have to pair it up. I'm just saying the one that always seems to end up hitting is you just go to the tight end with the quarterback, leave everything else alone. You can almost just do that. You could play Jaden Daniels, Zach Ertz, and one of Neighbors or Robinson if you even want to run it back. Just saying that's kind of the setup here, what you can do. The setup here is what if he's Daniel Stones? What do we got to have this guy after we all loved him so much last week? You get
move on to next week, as Hoop says.
Robinson.
Yeah.
Look at the stack though that you can run. This is the talk of week 2. When you look at
we can't do it this week, man. We can't talk ourselves into this. We did it we cannot. Hey, that's fine. It could be one, but it's not going to be. And it will not be a fucking trio this week. I'll promise you that. It'll not be a trio.
Well, someone asked earlier who's going to get the most money first, so maybe it's me if I go this route. But Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors, Wandale, Mr. Robinson, and then you could run it back with Robinson, or you could go the guy that everybody wanted last week, Terry McLaurin. But now you said it earlier, Hoop, it's going to be a dust week. We're going to get Derrick Henry. We're going to get Jonathan Taylor. We're going to get Terry McLaurin. It's going to be all the opposite of last week. That's a stack that you could run back. So I'm just going to put it out there. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I understand, but our stack ranking is good. The game spot looks good. Title mentioned it. If we loved it last week, why not give it a shot, right? Jake is coming with the takes. We're not going to put that one up, but
I almost did.
That's why I called him Danny Dime earlier, because he's only down to 1. But
that's a good statement. We can put that up. That's not too bad. That's like that's a nice one, man.
That is a good one.
That was definitely for title. He loves the cheeks comment.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. And in this
I
capacity,
think title's different cheeks in this game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he usually uses it in a different capacity, but this one's not bad though either.
Everyone wants to play all these guys. There's lots of options there.
We got Tambo winning a milli with Justin Herbert and the boys, and Danny Dimes and the boys today. Hoop.
Oh man,
two horrible plays. That's probably fine. Yeah, he will be very low owned. Taco Todd knows, man. That's perfect. Let's go to the next game here, Hoop. This one, a lot more interest, I would assume.
Wait, did Hoop talk about that game?
No, I mean it's gonna be.
He literally plugged his ears on it. So
yeah, that's true.
I could not. I listen. I like to support the crew. If you guys have strong takes, and I don't have a guy in my player pool, I'm willing to make the move. Like Baker Mayfield, it's 50-50 on Baker Mayfield. You guys pushed me over the top. I'm in on Baker Mayfield this week. But man, we cannot, like the Daniel Jones thing, it can only be 1 out of 3. We cannot be 3 for 3 on the Daniel Jones stuff. It did not work at Tambo. I'm always rooting for you. I hope that Daniel Jones wins you $1 million this week, but it's not going to be for me. And the Neighbors thing, I am going with title. Like if he's going to be like, there was some really good wide receivers. If he's going to continue to get like big time ownership with Daniel Jones throwing him the football, like I got to be underweight or potentially off. So I'll be lower on Neighbors. I will have some Wandale because of the price tag. Theo Johnson, a punt tight end. Don't necessarily hate that. Jaden Daniels. There's not many quarterbacks that I like playing naked. I will play Daniels naked. But if I do, it's the same thing. If I do pair him up, it's Ertz, cheap tight end. I just don't know if he's capable of getting McLaurin the ball, man. Like it did not look great from a passing perspective. Daniel's going to put up some monster fantasy games this year for sure, but I don't know if it's going to come through the air at all. Like it's tough. I will have some, what do they call them? F1. I will have some F1, but not a ton.
F3.7 last week, the amount of DraftKings points he scored. So
F3.7, I do it.
But we'll see how it goes from there. Let's move on, Hoop. I'm going to stick with you. Rams, Cardinals. Like I said, this is another one. You'll see the color coding. You'll see everybody on this list. So it's definitely a game to target. But how are you handling this one, Hoop?
Yeah, a lot of different ways obviously go on the Rams side. No Puka. They did not have time to adjust the price tags up because it was a primetime game. Cooper Kupp is going to be very, very popular after 21 targets. 21 targets. Does he get 21 this week? Probably not, but he doesn't need 21. I mean, he gets wide open. I mean, he was wide. It's funny. Mrs. Hoop actually was watching the game with me. She's not a big sports fan. It was the Sunday night game, and she's like, "Man, why is that guy wide open every single play?" I was like, "Well, that's just kind of what he does. Just gets open and great connection with Stafford." So Kupp is premier play. You can play Demarcus Robinson for cheap, and then the other dude is Tyler Johnson? Was he 3,300, I believe? So super cheap price tag on him. He had a big run or a big pass play in that game. So definitely can play all those guys, can play Parkinson, Kieran Williams. Like if you're going to fade Cooper Kupp, I think like one of the first guys you should put in your lineup is Kieran Williams at 6,800. So a lot of different ways to go on the Rams side. Cardinal side, definitely more difficult. James Conner looked really good. I mean, a very secure, big workload. Kyler Murray, I think, is fine at home. Marvin Harrison, I don't know, man. I'm curious to see what you guys say about that. But like they said, I'm not into like the deep stats, but it looked like he was getting like no separation apparently in that game. Like couldn't even get open. Trey McBride, much better price tag on FanDuel, but I'm definitely interested in DK as well. I think a lot of people try to go cheap at tight end on DK. I'll pay the price tag for a guy like McBride that has huge upside at the position. But another premier game, but I want to get your guys' take on Harrison.
We are back to the well on Harrison, especially on FanDuel. It's just a perfect run back. And like, this is the classic situation. Oh, Kyler Murray's too short to get him the ball. The guy only what was the one I saw last week? That was
not too. He just sucks at playing football.
Yeah, but this one was worse to me. I get it. Like it's a 1 week. Again, I'm never going off a 1 week sample. Marvin Harrison Jr. sucks now. He only runs 16 miles per hour down the field. He's not fast enough anymore. He just lost all his juice after 1 week and he's done. So to me, I'm always playing at 6,500 on FanDuel. Like that's especially where I like him more. But yeah, stacking it up from both sides, ways to get different. Demarcus Robinson was one that popped for me. I know in our stack rankings, you're seeing obviously very good ranking here. It's going to be with Stafford, Johnson, Kupp. But obviously people are playing Parkinson. Robinson is right there. He's getting a little love too. These are the guys that you can roll to. And then Williams is right there at the $6,800 price point that a lot of those other running backs are hitting on as well. So maybe Title, I'll let you take it over here. But I think there's tons of good options in this game. James Conner could get squeezed because of this. He's the opposite side of Williams. Harrison, McBride, popular on FanDuel, but not as popular on DraftKings, opposite of Parkinson. Over here, there's just a lot of ways to get different in this game, even if it is a game that you love, which most people do.
Yeah, it's hard not to like this game. I mean, it's the Rams side, as you see all these colors are going to be popular. I don't really have too many differing thoughts from what Hoop and you said. I don't love the quarterbacks as much, but they're definitely going to be in the pool since you have so much option in the secondary pieces. I'll start with Cardinal side because it's easier. The thing with Marvin Harrison is you have to make some stands and who he's priced around. Cooper Kupp's more expensive. I like him more. I like Mike Evans, who's a little more. I like Garrett Wilson in the same price. I like Debo for a little cheaper. I like Rashee Rice for a little cheaper. I like Ayuk for a little cheaper. Olave for a little cheaper. So I just don't see myself getting there much on DK. That FanDuel price, anytime you see someone cheaper on FanDuel than DK, like you mentioned, that price most definitely sticks out. I'd get more of my exposure on there on FanDuel than DK. James Conner is probably my favorite leverage play in this game. I mean, again, there's so many good running backs. The workload was great at home, big total, can catch some passes out of the backfield. I really like James Conner in this spot to get different. Doesn't break the bank. Can always play McBride and similar. So McBride will be a lot more popular on FanDuel than on DK, as we see. So if you want to get different, play him on DK. He's just too cheap on FanDuel. Easier to mix in there. And maybe I even prefer Kyler on FanDuel than DK because McBride will be popular. That's how you get off, or like you can play a chalkier McBride and then just add his quarterback there, and Kyler will be super low owned in that range with Jaden Daniels, etc. So mainly just Connor, Cardinal side. Rams, I like it all. My least favorite at ownership is Parkinson. Again, these cheap tight ends, the Parkinsons, Schoonmakers, Atkins, that some people are concentrating to. Like, what is the true upside? Is a receiving prop 16.5 yards? They have Robinson, Kupp, Kyron, Tyler Johnson. Talk about a cheap play, like a pivot off of Lazard a little bit. Yeah. They have the same ownership. I do think Lazard will be higher owned. They run a lot of 3 receiver sets in LA. So in a dome, track meet, so many pieces alike. I love the Robinson stuff. You play Stafford, double it up. But yeah, I don't love Parkinson as much at ownership. I like Connor at ownership. And
just one note, you said it, and I'll see how it actually shakes out. I definitely think that Lazard's going to be more popular than Tyler Johnson, just the way it's set up. I know we're on him and we like him, but very similar projection, 8.4 and a 14 ceiling. Our optimal rate is 7. You scroll down to Tyler Johnson, 8.3, 14.4, 70. I know we're showing similar ownership right now, but I just don't see it. When the cards flip, I see it's going to be, and again, this is from overnight versus right now. So, Lazard is still getting talked about on other sites everywhere else. I think we're going to see Lazard a lot more owned than Tyler Johnson. And we've seen the pivot in reverse. And it's funny enough to use Greg Dortch here. Greg Dortch is on the other side. Awesome. There was tons of games there was 2 games at least in the last couple of years where Dortch was super popular, and it was when Trey McBride was super cheap. And instead of playing Dortch, you moved to McBride. Funny enough, we're on the same situation, same game, 2024, years later, week 2. Parkinson is popular. You can just move to Johnson at 3,300. You're still playing the same spot. You're still in the same game. And I talked about even if you want to use Kupp, and you don't need the quarterback. I like having him in there. But this is like if Cooper Kupp was 9,000, you wouldn't be shook by that price tag after what he did last week. So just take that extra money and minus it off of whoever you want here and just call them a combo pack or as one, or like you're getting the other guy for that much cheaper. So lots of ways to get different. I like the Dortch call. Hoop, anything else you want to go through? We kind of covered quite a bit here, I think.
Yeah, great calls. The Tyler Johnson play, I think, definitely stands out as a key play in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that as you talk through the next one. Take us into this next one because we have hit the afternoon games. There's only 3. Any just late swap stuff too? I know we were going to talk about that a little bit, but my take would just be if you got stuff going right in the morning and you want to swap to, and you really love the Rams-Cardinals game, you can swap to it, especially if you got some lower-owned guys that went off in the morning. But if you went downhill, like we know where all the chalk is in the afternoon is more so on this game and Rice and a couple other spots, but it's way heavier on this Rams-Cardinals game. So you may have to switch to some overstacks or some Burrow stuff or whatever. We're going to get to it, my never Mahomes takes, but go ahead. I'll let you start on this one, Hoop, because I think you do like Mahomes, at least a little bit.
Yeah, definitely some late swap opportunities for sure. Like you know where the ownership's going, like the Cooper Kupp play. I mean, it's so nasty and dirty, but like if you have $200 extra and you're getting your ass kicked, like Jamar Chase, like yeah, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel great. The odds of Jamar Chase outscoring Cooper Kupp today probably not great, but it at least gives yourself a chance. We talked about it quite a bit on the cash show. What Title was able to do last week. So definitely, stuff to look at here. On the Chiefs side, I know the never Mahomes stuff, but I just got to be on him because I love Rice today so much. I'm definitely interested in Worthy. So I'm gonna play him. It's gonna, I know you got all the numbers ready to go on him never being a Millie Maker winner in 3 seasons, all that crap, but I think it's maybe a little bit different this year. We'll see. I mean, these pass catchers, Rice, Worthy, Kelsey didn't look good, obviously, but man, it's not expensive. It's not expensive as it used to be. Like to stack Mahomes in the past, it was a lot more expensive. And you had to play just like random dudes that you didn't even know were going to be on the field. Now it seems a little more consolidated this year. Rice, Worthy, Kelsey, Pacheco out there can catch passes as well. So I'm in on it. On the Bengals side, Jamar Chase probably sub 5%. Definitely want a little bit in 150. Didn't look good last week. I imagine it looks a little bit better this week. So I'm in on Chase. Yoshi, another cheap wide receiver. Gesicki, you can throw into the cheap tight end mix as well. But these Chiefs guys look way too cheap to me. And Pacheco, again, has to get squeezed a little bit. He looked really, really good in that first game. Just running every time he gets the ball, he's just on a mission. You can tell. We're showing 9%. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit lower. So I really, really like Pacheco today.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end of these games anyway, so I'll hit it now, quick Title, before I go to you, and then you can round up if there's any other thoughts. But I do think Mahomes comes down a little bit. Pacheco goes up a little bit. I actually think more people are leaning into this the closer we get to lock. So just keep that of note. The one side of the coin is what Hoop said. It's only week 2, and so Mahomes is much cheaper than he probably will be. Rashee Rice, much cheaper than he probably will be. Kelsey can always get up there as well. So if you are stacking, and if you saw week 1, you probably feel a little bit better about how this offense sets up. It's down to just these guys for the most part. My take was, and going back to it, I also never play Mahomes, but if it's also week 2 and people think they've got it figured out, that's oftentimes not when it is. So I'm happy about that. And thirdly, I went back for 3 years. It was like 68 slates or something across playoffs, Millie Makers, everything. Only 3 times Mahomes has ever shown up, and he needs like 400 yards and 4 TDs or 425 yards, a walk-in TD and 3 TDs. So can he do it? Of course. He's Patrick Mahomes. But my other takeaway would be, if that happens, it's likely that this side pushed it. And when we're talking about cheap price tags, $6,300 for Burrow, $7,800 for Chase, $3,800 for Yoshi Voss, missing guys, Gesicki in there at $3,100. So you can still do your Chiefs side of stuff, but do it with the Bengals side and just hope that that's what's needed, even if the Mahomes side tries to get there. First of all. Second of all, you can play plenty of these guys and not need Mahomes at all. Rice can have 7 for 115 and 1, and that doesn't mean shit for a $7,000 Mahomes. So you're hoping for big games all around, but you're going to need all of it, and then you're going to need to get all of it correct. That's DFS, but that's why I never play them, and I brought the numbers to back it up. Title, any extra thoughts from you? You didn't touch on this yet, but just overall thoughts on this game.
No, the great points you just made. You brought in historical data. I agree with kind of what Hoop says as well. Bengals side easy for me, really just Yoshi. He's going to be popular again. Some people might be a little shy from last week. There's Lazard options, cheap tight ends, so that 60% looks good. Played 100% of snaps. I'm totally in. 6-point dogs as well. Other than that, though, I mean, the offense looked awful for the Bengals. Going into Arrowhead is not a fun place to be, so I'm not really going to be stacking them up. I prefer others up top. Like Jefferson will be low owned, Chase will be low owned. I'll probably just that 5% I would have of Chase, just move to Jefferson, to Garrett Wilson, some of those guys. So nothing Bengals side. Chiefs, I'm hoping it's Kelsey, Rice, Worthy, Pacheco, and Mahomes, and that's it. But Juju almost did catch a touchdown last week. You really never know at the end of the day. No strong takes there, but Hoop just made me laugh when he said Pacheco, when he runs, he's like he's on a mission. Dude, always. We call them stompers over here, and I saw a great quote tweet last year. They compared him to like a kid in a shoe store, 2 sizes too big, just running around stomping. That is stompers right there, because that dude runs everything like he's putting all of his energy into any run, so I like that.
Yeah, and I think the late swap stuff was really important. I know we touched on it already, but that's kind of the key there is if most of the chalk is coming from the morning anyway, so if all your stuff is dead, a rough week 2 to start off, I just don't know how you just let your stuff sit there on that other game. You kind of have to move to this one. And for me, it's going to be the Bengals side out of all of this stuff that is the most interesting. That's where I would move it to. Title, I'll stay with you. Last game on the DraftKings slate is the Steelers at the Broncos. Bo Picks, the guy called him Bo Nix, the guy called him Throw Picks. I love that one. But, we'll see how it actually goes. But I think defenses are a conversation. I know some people like Najee Harris, but there's, like you said at the top, a lot of orange on this one. It's just GPP only. So any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, like you said, if you see almost all orange, it's usually not a game I have much interest in. Both these teams, no good. This game beats me. It beats me. It's the pivot of the pivot of the pivot if you're really drawing dead late. But no, this game stinks.
Hoop, this could be perfect for you, though. I'm going to kick it to you because only one guy in color on this game. And last year, 2 of your biggest calls were what we started with, Dak, and now as our guy Nade's got up there, dusty Najee season. And he also fits what you talked about earlier with the same thing I said on the other guys. If it's going to be a, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, if McLaurin, by the way, I pulled up the birthday narrative. McLaurin, 29 years old today, so under 30 still, but it is his birthday. Maybe they get him the ball that way. But Najee Harris, anything in this game?
Yeah, I guess Najee Harris might fit in certain scenarios, but one scenario he's not fitting is into my DFS lineups today. So that'll be a big pass. And then this game is a big pass. It's the defenses and like nothing else. I can't imagine clicking names here, man. I just can't imagine doing it.
Najee Steelers would rank under Ramondre Patriots for me, but it is there. Like you can play it. I get that one. Jaleel McLaughlin last week was getting a little bit of work with the Broncos. These are just, 150 lineups. But other than that, nothing for me to talk about here. And then, Hoop, I'll stick with you. Just FanDuel takes. They do carry the Bears and the Texans game. And somewhat interesting. There is some spots in it for sure. I know we're waiting on a little bit more injury news from this game. We didn't fully update this yet because, again, it's going to be updated after the show. Probably already is. But just to note it, Texans and the Bears. Any quick takes on this one?
Definitely no Bears. I think it's a really bad spot for them. There's injury stuff too with like Keenan Allen and whatnot, but Texans I think are a really good team to look at on FanDuel, and it should be a solid team moving forward because, man, it's consolidated. You have Joe Mixon got all the work and looked really, really good. I think he's a fine play. And then you have Stroud with 4 legit options: Nico Collins, Diggs, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. Like you can play with all those guys. So I'm in on the Texans side. I'm going to probably be over the field, I'd say, on the Texans on FanDuel. And then the Bears, I'll just be crossing off.
Yeah, the reason I asked, too, is because last week your 5th place in the FanDuel Millie Maker was with a late climber. It happened to be Cooper Kupp early on him before everybody else was. So just a keynote there. And Title, if you got anything to add, just a quick note. As expected, Jake Ferguson just ruled out. So we already talked about that earlier, but not going to play. So Texans, Bears, Title, final thoughts on this slate.
Yeah, Hoop covered it really well. It's mainly the Texans side. They're going to be so fun this year because CJ's a monster. You have a running back horse and Mixon. When you have Nico, Diggs, Tank, and then you can even throw a tight end in there in stacks. Always you can get different in that stack. So, yeah, final thoughts is, man, it's a fun one. 13 games. Again, we talked about a lot of pretty concentrated chalk. You can see that in the cash report over here. You can see that in our ownership. And I think there's so many pivots. The running back room, we mentioned so many. And tight ends, like I didn't really work last week, but I think I want to not avoid, but maybe be under a lot of those cheapish tight ends that are getting steam because of injuries like Parkinson or no Njoku. So there's Atkins, no Ferguson, so Schoonmaker. Give me some of these actually good guys like the Kittles of the world. Maybe I shouldn't throw Zach Ertz in the good stuff, but I liked him a little more. So yeah, I'm excited for this slate, man. Any free money Sunday, 13 games. There's nothing better in life.
Yeah, maybe Sin Day, Win Day. I'm excited for it as well. I think the Texans, the mix inside, Stroud with Collins, maybe Dell. If you go back to the well with Diggs, run it back, see how these the wide receivers shake out. But DJ Moore, also cheap on FanDuel. So I could see a little bit of a late climber, but not really as focused on this. It's not a target game, anything like that for us. Hoop, final thoughts on this slate before we get out of here?
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I mean, full slate, a lot of different options. And again, just to reiterate kind of what I said in the opening, like we know where the ownership's going at the running back position. We know where the ownership's going at the wide receiver position. And I just really think those are going to be the two important positions today because we have clear leverage plays off the chalk. There's so many different options. So yeah, for me today, it's going to be what you do at running back and wide receiver that kind of determines the slate.
Yeah, if you like all the stuff that you guys saw here, we did not hit the likes, and that's okay. That's how it goes. It's early in the season, but we always stick to our word. We still did give away a month membership. Shout out to our guy, Jake the Take. We're going to hook him up so he can hit me up, info@ShipItNation. But if you go to the site, you'll land on it, shipitnation.com. Go join the nation. You can get in all access, including Shiptimizer, for under $100 a month if you want to get in on that. If you want to go just to football, though, $54 with no Optimizer and $64 with Shiptimizer. So you can get all that, the education course, everything that we talked about earlier. If you like the stone, we bring it for Showdown. We've got all the other coverage that we do on the site as well, the projections, the ownership, all of that stuff. But hopefully next week we can hit the likes, give away the annual. If you're just joining us or watching this on replay, hit it anyway. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll make it happen for you guys. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Hoop, for Title, and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!